And here are with the UK MMA legend, Mr. Matt Inman himself. How you holding up, my friend?
I'm good, yeah, good. Thanks for having me on, Dan.
Not a problem at all, fella. Not a problem at all. So, any initial reflection from the fight itself? So, ring rust, I think that's a myth. I think we'll take that as read because you look fresh, look sharp, really clean, like clinical work in there. How did you feel your performance went versus expectation?
Um, yeah, like it was kind of a weird one in a lot of ways. Obviously, I didn't really know what to expect with being out for 3 years before the fight. I think there's like a few people like my coach Alex was saying like you probably did have a bit of ring rust there because I started quite slow, but then if you look at pretty much every fight I've had, I always start pretty slow anyway and kind of go into it as the fight goes on. I was disappointed in the result a little bit. I didn't work a lot of what I'd wanted to work. What we'd worked in camp in the fight, it turned out to be a completely kind of different fight than we'd been expecting. But yeah, like it was, I enjoyed like the main thing I enjoyed the preparation for it. I enjoyed being back in there. So, it was a good experience. So that's it.
Now, with that being said, then again, that sort of time off from competing again, did it feel like the good old days as such of, okay, this is the usual camp sort of anxieties, nerves, excitement? Was it its own sort of thing in itself? Did it feel, how did it feel in comparison to the previous sort of camps and training sort of preparations?
It felt good. It felt really fresh. I think like being off for a while and then like really like the previous 30 fights had just been like back to back to back to back to back to back. So it was just, like from the period of like 2008 to 2017, I was pretty much training for a fight all the time. And it's like, like it's fun and it's a good job and it's fun and stuff like that, but it's a job. So you're getting a bit kind of worn down by that. And then, as soon as I was kind of stepped away from it, I missed it. So like once I actually got back into the preparation and doing it, it's fun. I enjoyed the whole thing. I enjoyed like the kind of discipline of it, and then being forced to, like, I was traveling to train, traveling to do my spars and stuff like that, and it was just good. I just enjoyed it.
Now, with your spars and preparation for this, then, did you try and get, I want to call him Bonner just because he's the same Matt, but not you, Matt, the other Matt. Keep saying, so with my preparation stuff, did you try and emulate sort of Bonner styles with your training partners as such? Was it just you were trying to implement your game plan sort of thing? Like, how specific was your sparring for the fight in itself?
I think it's always like with us, it's always kind of, and this is the same way I work it with my fighters as well. It's kind of 80-20. It's like 20% the opponent, whoever that be, and it's like, we don't go too far into the opponent. The opponent's just a body with tendencies, and you never know really when it comes to the fight whether they're going to show those tendencies or which tendencies they will show in the fight. So, we don't pin too much on that. There'll be specifics we work there, and then 80% is just your own game, your own development. What do you do well? What areas of your style match up well with the opponents, and where you think you can go and work from there. Sparring wise, it was like, I'm kind of like, I was lucky really because I just had like decent level guys to work with. Like obviously I trained George Smith, so I working with him a lot. He's a good, decent middleweight, obviously. And I was fortunate to get a lot of work in with Adam Proctor up in South Shields, who for my money is one of the best guys out there. So, like working with him was cool. And then just other bodies as well, and guys in and around the gym. It's like, with COVID, it wouldn't be like it normally was, where we're like, just unlimited amount of guys and you could go anywhere and spar with whoever. So that wasn't really happening. But like sparring's a pretty small part of what we do anyway. It's like, like the actual hard rounds, maybe once every couple of weeks. The main thing is just those kind of tech rounds, working specifics and that kind of thing. And you can work that with all kinds of different guys. You've got lighter guys to work speed, some really big guys to work that strength against, that kind of thing. So yeah.
Okay, I know this is gonna be a good one. I love this. So this is the thing with your guys' work. Obviously yourself, we've got Stapes, you got Enman as well. I mean, these sort of MMA brains are just perfect to sort of pick that kind of thing. I love it. So when you say like these sort of tech rounds in themselves, then, is this based off you're trying to go not dig for dig as such, saying you're trying to go match the speed of the people who are going quick or trying to slow them down with your sort of style? as in the sense of you trying to go with your strength against their strength, or trying to outdo them at their game as such, regards of your personal preference, those sort of situations?
Well, it's like if you're working, so if you're like training for a fight at 185 or something like that, and there's a lot of guys in the gym who are floating around like 155, and then a lot of times it's like, obviously you can't do like sharp, we'd call it sharp sparring, hard sparring, whatever, with guys like that, because it's just the weight advantage is too much. But what you will get from a guy like that, you know, like a 155 or even a 145er, we've got guys like I'll do work with Manny Akpan, and just his speed's just ridiculous, and it's just that kind of. So if you can use shelf, I guess your attributes like is being bigger than someone an attribute, but if you can shelf that, put it to one side, and then work with those guys, you can definitely get a lot of development from that. If that makes sense.
100%. And again, you hear this from guys like Geoffrey Holton, and again, other sort of bigger guys who train with guys like Jack Cartwright, everyone else, the sort of people saying that. I think Jack Cartwright's a bit of an exception because, again, the power of that sort of, you know, evens out a little bit, but it's one of those ones.
Yeah. If Jack hits you at any weight, you're going to feel that.
That's what you're going to know about. I don't
spar with Jack.
That's it. You like having your brain cells. It's all good. I mean, this is in itself. So regards of tech work in itself then, so do you do more positional stuff, like situational stuff? Is it like, okay, this round you're back against the fence, need to try and secure a takedown or win the round? Is it like, okay, you're starting them, I don't know, bottom mount, you need to try and get out and reposition? What are you, more circumstantial or positional? How would you like to do your tech sparring, like specifics around?
Yeah, so like, I mean, 90% of what we do, to use like the SPG nomenclature, is what we call isolation. So we'll be isolating a specific skill or a specific range, and we'll be working that. So, and isolation can be anything right through to what we call kind of integration. So integration might be something like, you say, for example, we go in any one day and we might start with, you say we'll be working a takedown on the wall. So we'll run through some intro on that and do some kind of basic, you know, what guys would call drilling, where we go back and forth against very light resistance. And then we might do like a situational drill. So it might be like, right, you're going to start with this underhook against the wall. Your job is to get this guy down to here using this, and this. He's going to try and do this, and this, and then we'll do a few rounds like that. And then we might integrate that further by just opening it up and saying, right, well, you're on the wall now. Your objective is to do this. Your objective is to do this. This is your start position. Go. And then, you know, further down the line from that, it might just go into some lighter full sparring. But you're like, if you're the guy, you might get given you know, the objective of pushing the guy against the wall and taking him down there or something like that from out in open. So, you know, it's really like, it's kind of limitless what you can do. But I think like there's kind of a lot of places, and I've seen this in the past, where it's just kind of go in and, right, well, we're going to spar 5-5s, we're going to do 10-10s out in the open. You see it in jiu-jitsu gyms all the time as well. Like, you know, the thing that winds me up most about jiu-jitsu is you get a coach, he'll show 3 techniques with no resistance, no isolation, and then he'll go, right, guys, go roll. And then you have a class full of students who've just done 3 techniques. It could be from like an armbar from mount, 2 variations of this armbar from mount or something like that. And then they've got 5-minute rounds of rolling where they might end up in top mount twice. And it's like, you know, like if you're thinking about developing a skill, like how does that work for you? Like, you've seen it. The chances are most of the students aren't even going to remember it by the next day or whatever, let alone put it so that they can work it in the game. So it's like, yeah, isolation is basically what we do. We put everything into isolation drills. So you've always got time, whatever the skill or technique we're working, we're always getting practice working that against resistance within parameters before we open out into what you call like full sparring or rolling or whatever it is we're doing.
I mean, that in itself, again, it makes so much more sense, because, again, the analogy with this is always the same as like when you're doing, like, I don't know, lifting weights, you progressively add on weight as is sort of thing again, but you don't just sort of do generic workouts and hopefully that's going to be there at some point. And it's the sort of way of trying to, it's trying to make sure, go on.
So I'm going to jump from the bench press, and then I'm going to go do a few squats, and then go do some pull downs, and hopefully just, you know,
just catch up somewhere in the middle. Yeah,
hopefully something will work. Yeah, it's just, it's like, And I don't know if it seems obvious to me now, but I guess I'm fortunate in that my coaches, so Carl before me, always pushed that. I know his coach, Matt Thornton, is kind of a big proponent of that kind of training. He invented he named what we call the I method, which is introduction, isolation, integration, like I was talking about there. So like really for the past 15 years or whatever now, I've been brought up through that. So it always kind of, it surprises me when I see people not training in that way, because it just makes sense. If you want to get better at something faster, then that's how you need to be doing it, in my mind.
It definitely makes a lot more sense. Again, you get better at what you're doing. Right, so even less words than that, you get better at what you do. If you don't do it, you don't get better at it. Now, with the way you learn and way you explain techniques, are you more inch by inch with details? Are you more concepts and principles? What's your general rule of thumb for explaining how to do a technique, for example?
I guess I don't think I'm a very, you'd probably be best off asking guys I've coached. I don't think I'm a very wordy coach. I try and just boil anything down to the fundamentals of the position or the technique. So, what's most important, what's going to work across different body types, something like that. So like I wouldn't teach something that was specifically for a tall guy or a flexible guy. I'd want that to work across, and then we could like maybe with a specific athlete, we could try and iron out the details for them, but we'd start with that. I feel like I guess I'm quite a visual learner, or at least tactile. Like a lot of the time I have to just feel stuff. So I think that's a great way to get guys working as well, is just to give them simple cues, get them feeling positions, and then go from there and kind of not work it out yourself, but you know what I mean? Kind of, get that feeling from there, rather than like, I always find like if I watch I watch a lot of instructionals, but then there's certain guys like I understand Danaher is fantastic, but I find myself, because he talks so much, I'm just kind of
keep skipping 15 seconds at half 30 seconds. Okay, cool.
Then, like, is he going to show me
he hasn't moved
stuff yet eventually? Maybe. So yeah, just that's just me, but I think like that's hopefully what I just trying to keep it simple, really.
I mean, this is a huge thing in itself, of sort of the words only mean so much about the experience and understanding of these positions and the sort of resistance in itself. Because again, you show these nice butterfly sweeps, whatever else, you're like, oh wow, that's what will work all the time. But now what if they're a bit bigger? What if their weight's over here? And think, well, what would you do about that? Okay, I did that, it didn't work. Okay, then don't do that. And you keep on these sort of, I don't know, sort of trial and error. Now, interesting enough, you said about different body types for applying a technique. Are you one for trying to adapt the same technique for different body types in itself? So say guys, different shapes and sizes, would you try and make one technique work against all of these guys with modifications, or different techniques for the individual, if you see what I mean? So to apply your certain things. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think like, I just think like it's simplest, really, things should work for most people, like for everyone. Like I'm trying to think of an example. So the trap and roll from mount is something like, like most blue belts will tell you, that will work against someone who knows what they're doing from mount. But I think once you understand a few of the key little details from that position, and like I've trapped and rolled most people who've mounted me, like black belts, really good level guys, whoever it is, just by understanding those details. And I'm confident that I can show that to most people, like everybody, if they listen and they implement these certain fundamentals, they will be able to do that as well, regardless of body type. And for me, that's the kind of technique I like. I know it's like, and I understand like flexible guys will do things that flexible guys do well. Bigger guys will do things that bigger guys do well. But as particularly as a coach, I want to kind of transcend that, and then just look at what works across for most people, if you see what I mean. I think like I'll get more bang for my buck with those kind of techniques than saying, all right, so or you want to learn a mount escape, where you've got long legs and flexible, maybe you can do that one where you throw your legs up behind the guy's back and like kick him back or something like that. But then, you know, a smaller person is not going to be able to do that, or someone with short legs, someone without the flexibility. But I bet you they can do the Uber. I bet they can trap and roll if they get certain things right. That makes sense.
Definitely goes down to the 80-20 again, saying this should be your 80% of what you. Oh, how am I saying this? I don't think the way I'm going to phrase this.
Yeah, I think I know what you mean.
You get
so
the
it'd be
gist of
like
it.
it's 80% is the fundamentals, and then the 20% on top of that is how you do that, like your game. And you see, like, that in my game itself, I do things still now that I wouldn't necessarily teach. Like, most of what I've had success from my guard in MMA, I wouldn't necessarily teach that to people, because it does rely a little bit on certain kind of attributes I've got, the way my body works, you know, having quite long legs and stuff like that. So I guess that's where that 80-20 thing comes in. There's aspects of my own game that I wouldn't necessarily teach to every one of my students.
Well, I guess you go back to the whole thing of building up your core principles and your understanding, your foundation. And then from there, you can start applying it in different ways and seeing how you can then modify it to your skill set, preferences, and again, your own understanding of it in itself. Now, regards of taking the fight recently whilst coaching as well, how did you find that divide in itself? Was that pre-planned regards to the classes? Were you still coaching when that was preparing for that?
No, I mean, that's kind of been the main problem why I've not been fighting. Well, one of the issues was because I was coaching so much. Always had guys with fight preparation coming up. At some stages, I was running the classes in 2 gyms, and then pretty full on running 1 gym. But then, obviously, coronavirus has basically shut down my gym for most of the year. And the only work I've been getting is with the fight team. And it just so happened, scheduling wise, that there was none of the other guys fighting on this trilogy this time. So I thought, why not? Just kind of go for it.
I mean, stars aligned, didn't they? I mean, for the only possible way that things could work out quite nicely, you know, take away this workload, no one's put out, thinking, you know what? Whilst I'm here, I've got these gloves, they fit quite nice. let's have a little dance. Now, regards of when you're preparing your guys for fight time, go on. As you're saying, mate?
Yeah, just went for it though. Anyway, sorry, carry on.
No, so as to when you're coaching your guys and the emotional investment you put into them, obviously, you know, not just being a coach, but also being a friend and everything else. Did you give yourself that for this fight? Because again, having that amount of time spent being coaching, being investing in people, could you then put that in yourself separately, or did you just treat, okay, I'm now gone from coach back to student or fighter, or have you sort of compartmentalized that and then put everyone else to then do it for you? Like, how did you manage that kind of, I don't know, investment side, if you see what I mean?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I think I think one of the big things was I wanted to be coached as well. Like, I didn't want to be my own coach. So that was like one of the things that very quickly I spoke to Alex about, Alex Enman, and I was like, you know, will you like basically tell me what to do for this one? And then it was like obviously we shared ideas and stuff, but like particularly when I was up in South Shields, he was very much like, he was the guy running the drills. He was the guy telling me what to do, you know, these rounds, this, and that kind of worked well for me. That's one of the things I always I kind of enjoyed about being an athlete, was just that, like, just take instruction, just do this, not really thinking about anything else there. And then I didn't feel too different really to kind of compartmentalize anything. I don't think never like particularly emotionally involved in both in coaching. I think I try and not get too like emotionally involved. You have to care about the guys, not least because, you know, it's their safety that's on the line a lot of the time and that kind of thing. But at the same time, it's not like I'm banking everything on this guy winning, this guy losing, and that's the same. And it's exactly the same. Same with me when I'm fighting. Really, like just, you know, trying not to focus too much on the outcome. Like, you know, I'm not, you know, like you get a little bit disappointed after the loss or something, but I'm not I'm not sad about it or anything like that. It's good experience and good learning experience. So that was it.
Now, with being the coach as well, and then going to fight, do you feel any sort of pressure in the sense of having to perform to a certain standard? Sort of, I don't know. Obviously, you've earned your stripes. You've had many, 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 many fights. But the sense of, okay, you're coming back in action. Again, even just having that coach's sort of, background, does that add any weight to what you do? Is that just a separate sort of thing in itself?
Yeah, I think that's naturally going to be there, and I feel that like oh right, so you're saying you're this good coach and stuff, and then you're going to do a fight again, and you're just going to go out and you just get blown out of the water, you look ridiculous, and obviously all that kind of plays in the back of your head a little bit. But that's no different to if you're not a coach. Like I guess you still worry about your performance, and then going out and losing and not looking good or whatever, and kind of what people are going to say. But that's a big part of this thing. It's like there's a reason only certain guys fight. There's probably lots of guys with potential to do it, but who don't want to put themselves out there. I'm like, I can think of loads of times I've had spoke to guys who were really good technically and stuff like that, or really really physical, and like, yeah, I don't fight. I can't really be bothered with this and that. And then you think, well, deep down, I think that's because you don't want to put yourself out there, in front of that that public lens. Because I don't think and I think that's the hardest thing with fighting. Really, I don't ever feel like fear about getting hurt or anything like that, because pretty much everything that's bad can happen that is bad probably has happened to me at this stage of my career. But I feel that performance pressure, and that kind of that can really it's really something I had to work on, was dealing with that, because it can really choke you up once you get in there, and it all kind of hits you. But I forgot where I was going now. I've lost my trail of thought.
How do you manage it though? Like, obviously, like different ways of processing. Obviously, the Miami days, the pro days, and obviously dealing with even now. Like, do you have a process for when you get certain sort of, not so flustered as such, but again, getting quite overwhelmed, a bit nervous, a bit keyed up? How do you manage it now, opposed to how you used to manage it?
Yeah, so I did a lot of work with a fantastic sports psychologist called Dave Mullins, and he gave me some, a lot of brilliant pointers. But one of the main things I took away from it was so one of the things that would happen originally is I'd feel like these really horrible nerves and they'd just come on fight day. I wouldn't really I'd feel not through the camp or anything like that, but then on fight day when it came time to perform, I'd get almost I don't know, you describe it like anxiety or something, but it was like crippling. And then certain performances, I just went in there and you can probably tell which ones I'm talking about, and just choked. And one of the things he told me was well, that you can't do anything about that. That's always going to be there. That's just one of the things that that will happen. But what you need to realize is that doesn't necessarily have to affect the way you perform. So rather than focusing on that side of it, where it was all the doubts and the everything in there, instead I just go in and just focus on the technique, just focus on doing what you would do every day in the gym, which I'd never have a problem doing, and doing that. And then suddenly it clicked after a few more fights and a few more performances. I was like, oh yeah, well, I am going to feel like that every time, but it's not going to affect my performance unless I let it. You know what I mean? Providing I'm staying focused on how I'm performing and what I'm doing, that side of it won't affect me.
I like that a lot, because again, regardless if you're happy, sad, anger, indifferent, you can still hit pads the same sort of, same way, regard a bit of inches, but no, pretty much the same techniques. Everything else can still be applied the same kind of way. But again, you then tell yourself a story that because I feel this way now, I've got to freeze and then be deer in headlights, and then find the reason just to get stopped or whatever, just to get out of a situation or whatever thing it might be. But I like the way you can sort of process that thing. Okay, this is its own entity. Do you try and treat it as almost fuel for your technique and energy as such? Do you just try and think, okay, eventually this will pass? Is it not ignore it as such, but again, not focus on it? How would you say you manage that part of it?
I think it fuels me through training, because I'm sometimes you see guys take the foot off the gas in training and stuff like that, and I've never been like that. I've never been oh, I'm going to take a day off here, I feel a little bit sore or something like that, because I know that I have to be that much better than what I am just to deal with the way I'm going to feel on fight night, if that makes sense. So yeah, like it really fuels me through fight camp, and then like, let's say it's just, for me, it's just a question of like, come fight night, just focusing on what I do, and then putting that to one side, and just thinking technically as much as possible. And then, you know, it never seems to affect, like I've heard some people say, like, well, do you know, don't that take away your killer instinct or anything like this? And like, just, I've never had a problem with killer instinct, like, but I don't go in there feeling like, you know, when I'm trying to finish a guy, like, oh, I'm angry, or this and that. I'm literally just, boom, like you said, just landing my shots the same way. You know, I throw the elbow against the opponent the same way I throw the elbow on the pad. That's it. It's kind of just, I think when you've done something for so long, and it's kind of in there. That's just how it goes.
Would you say you aim to almost over prepare to compensate for any like anxieties on the day as such?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think can be a case of that. I don't think, like, I wouldn't necessarily, like, because over prepare sounds like you're going to kind of
Yeah,
overtrain and stuff like that.
more so the standard you
And
set the
particularly
fight sort of shape in a bit more. You see what I mean? A bit leeway.
that's it. Yeah, you just want to make sure you're better than you imagine you need to be for fight night, because it's not going to feel the same. And you see this with everyone. Like, you'll see guys in the gym who can do 3 rounds no problem, like 3 rounds real high pace in the gym when it's not there. But then as soon as they get out under the lights, you know, 1 round, and it's like, oh, I'm gassing because I've got that massive what do we call it, adrenaline dump or energy dump or something like that. And then, you know, guys get that. So I think it's important that, you know, you're not just, not to simplify, you're not just 3 round fight fit in the gym. You want to be able to do 3 rounds at a pace that you would never have to do in a fight, because that's probably how it's going to feel in a fight anyway. Because once your nerves and your adrenaline and everything starts going, guys can tire fast.
Are you one for like fight simulation as such to almost emulate that sort of atmosphere? Because again, I think it was John Kavanagh talks about it quite a lot in his book, and that sort of fight
Yeah.
simulation sort of thing. Are you one for that sort of side of it as well?
Yeah, I mean, that was, I think that was one of the things that John and Carl kind of came up with together. So that, like, Carl was very big on that in the early days, and he'd like, I remember him doing certain spars for certain fighters, and he'd have them doing like ring walks, listening to the music coming out and all that kind of thing, and we'd have like a crowd in there. We do very similar now. Obviously, you don't need a crowd at the minute because there's no crowd. But like, you know, like, just kind of, because there's that danger. You know, you walk in at the gym and like it's the same guys you train with every day, so you like pally with them, and you kind of just having a bit of fun. But it's like those days where we do sharp spars, it's kind of, you know, in all business, you do the same warm up you do on fight night. You'll have a referee in the cage with you. We can all be friends afterwards, but you know, we're there to work and simulate that kind of fight experience as much as possible.
I remember some of my friends were telling me they came up for a spar. I think it must have been, was it Manchester or South Shields? I'm not sure. And they said it felt like a fight, because I think it was Jordan was sparring with Jack Cartwright in between like rounds. So people giving like corner advice and bringing water and stuff. Thinking, what is this? It's just proper, like, so specific to a fight. It's getting used to that kind of emotions. I think it's mad. But again, it makes sense though, because again, it's being familiar with these sort of environments. Like, the reason you can still be composed in that sparring at pace is because you're familiar with it. Like,
Yeah.
not your first rodeo, so to speak. Now, regards of obviously your experience and then having like amateurs, people come up, how do you sort of measure that kind of expectation? Because again, you know, you expect from your pros and yourself a certain level of, you know, 5'5", certain this, that, and the other. But again, when people are coming up, like, what's your general cue to know they're good to, I don't know, even be considered to fight or be put through a camp as such?
I think, like, general level, I want them to be show me dedication in the training. I think that's the thing. Like, you get kind of hundreds of guys will come in and tell me, like, oh, I'm going to be an MMA fighter, I'm going to do this and that, and then it turns out they can't put 6 months of regular training together. You're like, well, you know, like, did you think it was going to happen in a month? So that's the first thing. I look for dedicated guys, not necessarily like the most like. I'm never looking for what would you call it, like talent straight away. I want to see work ethic. I want to see coachability. So guys who are obviously listening. So that's a good place to start, and then just developing those basic skills. For me, before they fight amateur, they don't necessarily have to have a blue belt, but I'd want them to be what I'd consider blue belt level in jiu-jitsu, and then a similar level in stand-up. Obviously, you've got to be able to learn how to defend yourself and throw the basic strikes and that kind of thing. And then at the minute it's just not happening, but there's normally a fairly good process then that we can put them in with some more experienced guys in the gym at spar. Maybe we'll kind of carry along and help them out a little bit, but test them as well, that kind of thing. And then onto that kind of inter-club level of competition. And then once we've done a few of those, we'd consider an amateur fight if that's what we wanted to do. But the thing I think that I always try and remember as much as possible with the gym is fighting is just 5% of what we do. Most of the people who come in won't ever have any intention of competing in MMA particularly, and that's completely fine. People are in and training for all sorts of reasons, whether it's for the health benefit, whether it's for the fun and the community of it, whether it's for self-defense, being able to look after themselves, protect themselves. And those are a lot more important to me than fighting. Like, whether guys walk through that door and want to fight or not, they might come in wanting to fight and it's the only thing they want to do, and they go straight through to that, or they might train for a few years and think, I think I might want to do, one just to see what it's like, that kind of thing. That's fine, but it's just a small part of what we do for me.
I guess a lot of it comes down to your place and your role as being a platform. That this is a thing you provide. This is something that, your service of the techniques you're giving are transferable to, again, these goals. They'll work in the cage, they'll work in the street, and again, because you can practice them more efficient and everything else. There's a whole general concept. And that where they want to go from there is then down to them as a separate entity. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. It just comes back to fundamentals again. So what I'm hoping to show people is the fundamentals of how to fight. And then once you've got that, you can take that where you want, whether you want to just literally for self-defense, whether it's for MMA, which I still consider two different things. The example is there's a lot of things I'd work with my MMA athletes that I wouldn't necessarily show to my 47 kilo wife. Like, she wouldn't need to learn top control, wrist rides and stuff like that. It's plenty for her to have an open guard, a way back to her feet and a way to get away from people, following her and that kind of thing. So it's it's different for everyone, but there's fundamentals underpinning everything as well. Everyone needs.
To be fair, if she's getting in any trouble and then she gets someone in her Dagestani handcuff, I think it'd be interesting to see the response from that. I think that'd be quite an interesting. That's one way of going about it, I think. This is it in itself. I mean, that's kind of the point, though. Again, understanding the platform, understanding what it's being useful information you're giving. Because in an MMA class, you're teaching MMA, you're not teaching MMA and self-defense in one and the same. And again, if you go into this would work in this situation, wouldn't work, and this becomes a whole lecture, becomes Danaher-esque kind of, this works for that, not for this, it becomes a thing in itself. But no, that's important. Now, regards of the self-defense side of things, so in class then, is that like a one-to-one thing you do? Is that just a principle for a different thing in itself?
So for me, more and more now, I try and incorporate that into jiu-jitsu that I'm teaching, because for me that's kind of most kind of the things that I think are most important for self-defense are most important fundamentally in jiu-jitsu as well. So like things like I was talking about before, like getting someone off the mount, being able to survive underneath someone, being able to keep someone close inside your close guard so they can't do damage, or if someone stands over you, being able to keep them away with your legs so they're not in an area where they can strike. Those are all important fundamental skills, whatever you want to do. So self-defense, obviously that stuff all makes sense. Jiu-jitsu, you're going to need to be able to do all that, even if you want to do Berimbolos in IBJJF style competitions. You still at some point you're going to get your guard passed, so you better know how to survive underneath, and then MMA, it's all relevant as well. Like, you know, you're going to get taken down time from time, no matter who you are. Can you survive on your back? Can you hold someone in guard? Etc. Can you, you know, like one of the big things I see in MMA is just guys can't hold them out. Like they get like, how often do you see guys hold them out for a long time at the minute? I remember watching a fight the other week, and it was like, it seemed strange to me because someone was actually holding them out. Well, who was it? No, I can't remember. It was in the UFC anyway.
Oliveira against Ferguson.
Yeah, Oliveira.
Oh,
It's just
that was
like
poetry.
just,
that was beautiful,
and it's beautiful, and it looks beautiful. But that's white belt. That's white belt jiu-jitsu that he's doing. He's literally
high standard white belt.
he's just keeping his. It's nothing. You know, the only thing is he's mastered the pressure and timing of that position, but it's nothing different to what I'd show a white belt in the first few weeks. But he can do it against one of the best guys in the world and make it look easy. So yeah, so that kind of, for me now, that self-defense, which as a term I don't really like anyway, but that aspect of it is the start of everything, and then it grows out from there.
And this is an interesting concept in itself, because again, once you start to learn martial arts, albeit MMA, BJJ, or whatever, you then realize how much you don't know, which we've come to self-defense with an intention to, you know, learn how to defend yourself. And you realize, okay, there's quite a lot of this I didn't know I needed to know, and it sort of keeps on expanding. So it's an interesting one in itself. So with that, I mean, this becomes a whole conversation in itself. So like, say the Gracie sort of fundamentals of, this is where jiu-jitsu for self-defense came from in the first place. Is that something you're trying to, I don't know, you know how they say when you get to purple belt, you should have a certain degree of striking, just a separate general well-roundedness for martial arts. Do you feel certain principles along that same kind of idea? Is it general understanding than it is anything else?
Yeah. So one of the things, and I say this whenever I do a blue belt assessment, is by the time I give someone a blue belt, I would hope that they could win in a fight against an untrained opponent. There's another word I put in there as well, but I can't remember. I'd have to get my notes out. They'd be able to win in a fight against an untrained opponent, and that's, you know, with strikes or anything. So that doesn't necessarily say you have to be able to strike, but can you close the distance against someone who is striking? Can you effectively take them down to the mat? Or is all the training you've done slapping hands and bumping fists from your knees and going from there? So, you know, if you end up in a real fight, which, you know, a lot of the time will actually start on the feet.
Off the knees.
What's that going to mean?
That's exclusive. A lot of people listening now about their heart's broken, thinking, okay, so my slapping the knees and my butt's not going to save me.
But, you know, but it's never too late to change that as well. Like, you know, like if you're listening to me saying that and then you're thinking, oh shit, yeah, he's probably got a point there. Like, well, first, like, and I understand this more than anything, right? Because jiu-jitsu is fun, and like all the technical stuff and everything you can do from your back, and obviously, what does Chris Howard call it? The seductive nature of guard. It is, and like once you go into that, like it's fantastic. But then if you're listening to me say that and you're thinking, oh shit, would I actually be able to get someone down to the mat and stuff like this? Then, you know, just take that time, work a bit of clinch, work a bit of takedown, maybe once a week. And I'm not saying you have to go out and get brain damage or anything like that, but have your have your training partners, guys who you trust, either put some gloves on and throw some light strikes or throw some slaps at you or something like that, and just, you know, just make sure that you're ready for that aspect as well. Because I think, like, you know, 95% of the people who come into the gym in the first place do it because they want to, like, no one really starts. Well, I'm sure some people do now. No one really starts martial arts because they see the Miao brothers in the IBJJF doing whatever they're doing. Or they see Keenan doing worm guard and think, wow, that looks awesome. I need to go look at my local jiu-jitsu school. But that's not in my experience anyway. That seems to be a thing when people get to, like, you know, good white belt, blue belt level, that they start seeing that stuff and then they do get seduced by it. But everyone in the first place, I think, comes in because they want to learn how to fight. And that's, you know, you mentioned the Gracies and stuff, and that's what jiu-jitsu was originally. And one of the things I keep trying to say is jiu-jitsu is for fighting. So, you know, try not to lose sight of that.
So all you white belts getting seduced by Keenan's worm, Keep that in mind. But this is a huge thing in itself of the application, and this is the huge point in itself. This is what we say about MMA grappling versus jiu-jitsu, because jiu-jitsu gets watered down to this idea that you're butt scooting with your, your nice flashy rash guard on, but no, jiu-jitsu is still MMA grappling, but it's understanding what MMA grappling is with the strikes, with the conviction that you can't sit there open guarded trying to armbar and then get scared when you get punched in the face. You need to be able to apply certain elements. And this is where I like a lot what you're saying with putting on these gloves, even with light resistance, just to know it's there and then having to deal with it, have to respect it. Getting back to your feet, how many jiu-jitsu guys, pure jiu-jitsu guys, are competent at getting back to their feet? Who does it? No one does it. You just play guard. And that itself is a thing in itself.
This is like... So it's like I kind of had this, but then I kind of stole Enman's version of it because I like it more. So now if anyone in the gym stands over someone but allows the person on the bottom to stand up, they have to start from bottom mount. So like, because this is one of my pet hates. I was discussing this with someone the other day, when you'll see like one person kind of running around someone's guard from like 3 feet away, giving them all the space to stand up to try and get past them. They're just like, you give all that space, where like in real life, someone is just going to stand up and either, like try and punch you or walk away from you. So just get on top and get him that guard.
Regards of like jiu-jitsu competitions before competing MMA, do you recommend that just proactively? Is it something you just think is a nice thing to do in its own right? Do you recommend it at all for people competing in MMA?
Yeah, if you can. I think so. Yeah, I think as much competitive experience you can get without taking damage, which is what jiu-jitsu is great for. Go ahead and do that, and do whatever you can. Do some jiu-jitsu. I know there's not much wrestling around, but it'd be good if guys could get some wrestling experience and that kind of thing as well. But there's so much jiu-jitsu, there's so much no-gi. Well, not at the minute, but hopefully at some point soon it will resume again, and it's fantastic. Like there's a reason that if you get good level competitive black belts coming in, that you don't put them in against day one amateurs, and that's because they've had X amount of jiu-jitsu matches and they've got that experience. Just like all the stuff we were talking about before, dealing with the nerves and stuff like that. Yeah, it's not exactly the same. It's not a fight, but it's like, like you still feel that when you get on the mat to compete against someone in jiu-jitsu, there's still that performance pressure. So the more experience you can get through dealing with that, if competition is your goal and that's something you want to do, then that's definitely going to be beneficial. I don't think it's like, I guess what would be the argument against it, guys, is say like, well, it's not MMA, you're going to get bad habits because you might, well no, like
sit down.
I roll.
Just get grip and sit down.
Yeah, I roll, whether it's gi, no gi, or I'm doing MMA, exactly the same, right? So like I kind of strip it back to what I do in MMA is more or less exactly the same as my gi game. Like I might add a few gi chokes in, or like every now and again there'll be a particular grip that I'll use, but I try and like, particularly when I'm training, I'll still train in the gi when I'm training for an MMA fight, but I'll just ban myself from grabbing, and I'll let my opponent grab me, and I'll just use that as like, that'll turbocharge my escape or something like that. So if you can get out from bottom when someone's holding you down with the gi, there's a pretty good chance you can get out when it's slipping.
Now, this becomes another thing in itself. So when you're rolling, do you have certain goals as such? You want from your tick list, okay, I'm going to get these certain positions, this certain technique off? Is it, I don't know, prevent them from using their game? What's your, I don't know, mindset when you're rolling or even sparring as such?
Yeah, I'm all like rolling particularly, I'm always trying to work on something. It'd be a certain position or a certain position I want to be in, and I'll just keep putting myself there. So like, like it was trying to think of an example. Guillotines from quarter, struggling with them. So I was just like, I did 5 or 6 weeks of just every opportunity I'd get, even when it was just open rolling, I'd put myself into that position, like, and that works. And that's one of the good things I can do, like being a slightly more experienced guy. So I can, a lot of the time when I'm rolling, particularly with rolling with my own students, I can control where they have me, so I can work that aspect of my game, which I think is useful. But then that comes back to what we were saying, like I'm most of the time when I'm rolling, I'm going to treat it like isolation. So there'll be a specific skill set I want to work and develop that day. So I'm going to try and put myself in the role, in that position as many times as possible. So I just treat rolling like another isolation drill rather than, and it's natural because it's one of those things, and it's fun. It's fun to just, slap hands, bump fists, not really have anything, and just see where things go. And obviously I think that's an important part of training as well, but that's like the 5% of it. I think most of the time, if you're serious about improving, you need to take stock of what's going on in your game, what your strengths and weaknesses are, and you need to work both of them. You need to put yourself in positions where you struggle, as well as, sharpening what you're good at.
So in that same vein, are you on for getting feedback straight away? Do you ask them how certain things went? Is certain things you could have done better? Are you on for taking notes? Like, how do you reflect after the fact?
I don't think I'm a big talker. I think I wouldn't know. Like maybe with, I think like one of my main training partners, Chris, who's like, he's been a black belt a bit longer than me, so he's with a black belt in RD, and we'll discuss things a lot because we kind of know each other's games so well, and he'll be like, oh yeah, what was that? What did you do there? And then other times, if someone is really giving me problems with something, or I see something that I like, I might like, what was that? What went on there? And then like I do, I take notes as well. I do that a lot. I try and consume as much as possible. So I watch as much instructional footage as possible, and I watch as much fights, matches, live stuff as possible as well, and just try and combine everything. I've got voluminous notes at home, which unfortunately are not in any kind of order. So like at some point I will get organised with all my notes and put everything together. But at the minute it's just like pieces of paper dotted all over. But I think like for me, just the process of writing things down sometimes, even if I never go and read it again, it helps me process what's going on. Because I think, and it's the easiest thing in the world, like we was talking about before, you just finish a roll and that's it, done, until we roll again next time. But I think, you can, it's proven in it that like, I was reading a thing the other day about visualization and visualizing things than you can by doing it itself. So I think it was like, what was it? It was like basketball free throws or something. They had one set practicing them, one set visualizing, and one set not doing anything. And the ones who didn't do anything didn't improve at all. And the ones who only visualized, never actually threw the basketball, improved almost as much as the ones who were putting in actual practice sessions throwing the basketball. So, that says something to me. That's like, for me, and for all my guys, I hope it doesn't just stop when you walk off the mat. I think, I hope you're taking some time to consider what's going on and really, get things in your head as well.
I mean, this is a huge thing about being proactive as a student. Again, I had this conversation with Ashley Williams, the actually Welsh grappling superstar sort of thing. This whole thing about if you go to school, you don't get the grades because you went there. You get a minimum. For your attendance is your minimum, and then it's the follow-up of your proactive sort of studying and understanding things, asking questions, that kind of stuff. Are you on for prompting question asking as such? Are you on insistent on it? Is it sort of you let them have their own development? What's your side of that?
I think like as a coach, I want to be asked questions for two reasons. Well, for multiple reasons. One, because it shows me the students are engaged. They're trying to, obviously, like you say, they're trying to improve. And another reason is because it helps my understanding as well. Like if there's a problem, or you're having a problem with what I'm showing, or you think there's something that's not working out or not working better, then show me. There's things that I held as a diehard belief 5 years ago now, but I think were completely wrong. And I think that can be a big problem with coaching, particularly with certain martial arts now, where things have obviously improved, but guys are just clinging to what they were doing then that did work then for them when things are better. And I think you've got to, if you're the kind of guy who won't accept questions and feedback, and you won't accept being challenged on certain things, then you're going to really struggle to keep up with that kind of thing.
Again, this is a huge point. If you always do what you always done, you get the same results. This kind of idea. Now, with your own training, your own development, how do you identify your plateau sort of thing? Because again, like saying you're doing the similar sort of rounds, getting these positions, is your way of avoiding the plateau by rolling with different people? Is it prioritizing certain things? Do you have cycles for stuff you sort of work on, positional things? How do you avoid your plateaus in your own training and coaching as well?
I think plateau, it's kind of natural, and then it's how you approach it from there. So it's natural, like you'll go through a period of growth with something, and then it'll seem like it's not growing as much. I think one thing I like to do is I just take stock, and then even I think sometimes when you feel like things are improving or things are stuck, sometimes they are. Sometimes it's just hard to measure, because like maybe if you're training with the same guys as well, maybe the guys you're training with are getting better. So you're thinking like, oh, this is a plateau, this is not working. But then all of a sudden you train with someone who's not trained for 3 months or something like that, and then bang, this is working against them, and they're like, whoa, what was that? So I don't think it's necessarily. I think as long as you're engaged, it's never that it's necessarily a plateau. Sometimes it's just doesn't feel like improvement because that's the way things go. And then I think like if I do feel, I guess a plateau would be like, that's obviously an opportunity to improve. So something's not working there. So, maybe a certain position in the clinch, I'm not able to take guys down from or move them how I need to be. So for me, that's not a plateau. That's an issue with technique. So we need to go away. We need to study some film. We need to, seek out instructions, speak to my coaches. I'm fortunate to have a really good network of guys who I can bounce ideas off and ask questions, and then like treat that as an opportunity to improve, and then come back, put it into the lab, go back onto the mat, work it. Did that work? No. Did that work? No. Until you find something that does. So, that I think what feels like a plateau can be a great way to drive development as well.
Again, that's what applications where it really comes down to that sort of, again, the development is all down to you in the sense of, again, plateau is a very general term. You understand, okay, I'm hitting a wall with the same technique, same sort of issues, but without identifying why these issues are happening, instead of, okay, it's not the technique as a whole, like baby in the bathwater sort of thing. It's more the intricacies of what I'm doing with it.
Yeah.
All right, saying that?
I think so. I think that's the case a lot of the time. Like it's not that the double leg doesn't work. It's just, there'll be certain aspects of what you're doing at some point through that process of hitting that double leg that's not working against certain things that can be, that can be improved and tightened up. And that's how guys get better. That's how the sport gets better as well. That's why it's developing as fast as it is. Like you watch UFCs now compared to even UFCs 2 or 3 years ago, and you can see how fast it's developing.
And it has to be as well. Like same with like the double A, for example. Again, could be the shots too shallow, could be setups not right. And again, it's that kind of intricacies where things sort of step up. And again, like even Cage Warriors is taking these sort of bigger leaps as well. Like you take Jordan Buchanan, Paul Hughes, are sort of back and forth to the wrestling. I mean, the old thing was the Brits can't wrestle, but you watch that fight, the back and forth with that, the understandings, and again, that's the core standard now. Like to have the understanding of that and the application. Like the whole sport as a whole is stepping up leaps and bounds. Now, regards of longevity in the sport, because again, obviously competing as long as you have, and obviously coaching and training and everything else, how do you stay, I don't know, consistent with it all? Like regards of body maintenance and also just well-being in general. Do you take time away from the sport at all? Do you take time just, I don't know, when you're home, is it like, switch off to a certain extent? How do you keep going as such with everything going on?
Keep saying.
Yeah, it's not what I'm saying.
I don't know, like, I'm lucky really, and this is like, I just really enjoy doing it, and then I think it drives my wife a little bit mad, but most of the time I am thinking about, jiu-jitsu or MMA to some level, whether that's, something coaching or something. So I never find I get kind of bored or burnt out with it mentally. So that's never an issue for me. I think in terms of health, in terms of injury, I think, like, and people hear me for saying this, but I think a lot of it's mindset.
Just a flash wound.
there's a certain, Yeah, there's a certain and guys will kind of the word for it's kind of nocebo. So they'll do the opposite of placebo, where it'll be like, oh, my knee's hurting a bit today, and then that mental effect of like, if my knee's hurting a little bit or something, I'll always just say I've got some knee pain. Whereas I think it's a tendency now for guys to rush to the internet, rush to the sports injury therapist, whoever it is, who want to tell them they've got like a grade 3 MCL and this and that. And like, now don't get me wrong, I understand that knee injuries do happen, but I think that's like, it's a big thing everywhere. And it's just, guys, it's so difficult to talk about this because and you do risk kind of offending and upsetting people, but it comes with the caveat of like, I understand injuries do happen, especially catastrophic injuries, especially in a sport like MMA, but at the same time, like, some of it is your mindset as well, just there's a like broken fingers, that kind of thing. It's gonna happen, just deal with it, just get on with it. Like I don't want to see my guys sat on the mat going, oh, I've got, my knee's twisting, it's popping, it's definitely, I feel like it's an MCL or something like that. You've got knee pain. It will probably go. If it doesn't go, eventually you might need a surgery or something like that. But for now, that's just knee pain, and just carry on and get on with it. And that's kind of the way I've always treated those kind of things. And I think, like, touch wood, I've been pretty lucky. I've not had too many. I think I've had the same level of injuries that most guys have had. And then I know there's certain examples, like I don't think Davey will mind me using him as an example, who's just like constantly injured. Just seems to go from one major thing to the next. So that does happen. And then I think the other thing, in terms of longevity, you've got to look after is your brain. We're in this and we're doing this, and we're taking a lot of contact to the head, particularly with striking, and particularly, like, I've boxed professionally as well, so I've done a lot of that, and I just try and be as sensible as possible with the sparring I'm doing. Always use the correct equipment, use what's necessary, and just try and protect yourself in those rounds as much as possible. And it can be fun. It can be fun to get into those kind of sparring matches where boom, 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 we're both just throwing away at each other. But really, what's the benefit of that? No one's getting paid for it. It's probably not making you that better at fighting. So just try and stay focused on, like Kavanagh calls it, developing the software without damaging the hardware. And I think that's a big part of it. It's definitely something I wish I'd taken more heed of when I was younger, because it was kind of very, like, particularly when I started out, a bit of like just a headbanging atmosphere of just like, we just spar hard, and then as you get older, you think like, no, that's not the way to do it. And that's definitely the way I try and push my guys towards now. Like I said, like we talked about at the start, I'd rather them do a lot of, my thing is, I'd always rather guys do 25 light technical rounds, rather than 3 balls to the walls, can't do any more after it because you've both got banging headache and black eyes and all that kind of thing. Like, which are you going to get more development of? Like, put it through a jiu-jitsu lens. Do you go 3 5-minute rounds, full gas, scramble, completely exhausted afterwards, or do you do 25 at a slower pace that you can maintain, which is going to make you better at jiu-jitsu? And it's kind of the same way I try and treat sparring as much as possible.
To play a devil's advocate, do you not feel it's horses for courses? Because again, like, you can be developed as you want, but when it comes to dealing with that pressure of going balls to the wall, having that composure is an art in itself and needs something to be, I don't know, experienced.
Yeah. And that's like when we come back to, talking about fight simulations and that kind of thing, that stuff is important. You need just the right amount of that, but you've got to be really, really sensible with that. If you leave stuff in the microwave for too long, it's going to get fucked up. So just put it in shortly, and the rest of the time it goes in the slow cooker. That's
I love that
that's
analogy.
there.
That's incredible. Tangibilism. Fantastic. Oh, where was I going to go with this? Anyway. Thank you for your time, my friend. Have you got any sponsors you want to shout out?
Oh yeah, shout out to PL Infrastructure, Kerigo Construction, and Atolo Solutions and Express Estate Agency for all their kind support, and thanks to everyone who supports me as well.
And your social media, please, mate.
Yeah, Matt Inman 86 on Instagram and Twitter, although I rarely use Twitter because it's just a cesspit. But like, if you tweet me on it, I will get it eventually. I'll get back to you at some point. And then I think my Facebook page is Matt Inman. It's either BJJ and MMA coach or MMA and BJJ coach. And then if you want to check out the gym, it's sbgmanchester.com.
Fantastic. I'm sure to check out our podcast sponsors, The English Hypnotist, Rieco Clothing, and The People's IT, and Fisticuffs _podcast on all social media platforms.